And I'm David Oro, and you're listening to The Embargoed, the greatest PR podcast of all time.
Damn straight. There's always something to talk about and a point to make.
And we're going to do it when we want, which is usually every other week.
Whether it's tech, business, sports, music, or your mama, we're going to cover it.
All of it comes from the point of view of public relations, reputation, and communications.
We are all about punching stodgy PR in the face.
That's right. So sit back, strap in, and let's get it on. Today is Thursday, June 30th, 2022. I'm David Oro.
And I'm Paul Wilke. Welcome to the show today.
Yeah, welcome to The Embargoed. It's our second one together, Paul. Thanks for being here. I think the first one was great. I love the video that you did. I want to be a YouTube star now.
We need 100 subscribers before we can change the URL to something really good.
You need subscribers to get a custom URL. So
you do. Yeah. But it was fun. I'm glad I'm back. You didn't scare me off, which is always good.
I didn't hear from any friends or family, but you're about to set it up because we did hear from somebody.
Yeah. So David, tell me, did you get any good email this week?
I got an email from our last show. We have fan mail. We're starting something new called Mail Time.
Send those emails, cards and letters. We love them. We got a special one this week.
So first of all, I went away. I did like a couple weeks vacation. I wasn't really paying attention. That's why we've been gone for a little bit. And then I actually disconnected. I went in the backcountry of Yosemite, was fishing, hiking, camping, doing all that thing. And I come back and your inbox from vacation is full of emails and most of it's just stuff you subscribe to or spam, whatever. But there was one gem in all of that, beyond the client emails and the regular work stuff. I got an email from a guy named Jason Winters. He was kind enough to reach out to us, and I want to remain kind and respectful to this whole thing. He is the co-founder of Kathy Ireland Worldwide.
Ooh.
Which is the person that we talked about last week at the show, in terms of how PR people should approach those sort of paid engagements with clients. Totally surprised by it. So he's been working with Kathy Ireland for over 33 years. He wrote me this letter, and I'm just going to read a little bit of it. He said to me, as a public relations executive, everyone at Kathy Ireland Worldwide appreciated your reference to a desire of not denigrating Miss Ireland. Like, I don't know if that was the objective. It was the process of it.
We did not want to
denigrate. I idolized her for years. I was not going to denigrate her for that. I still kind of idolize her. She's doing great. He goes on to write, unfortunately, my concern is that greater due diligence on our company, as well as the client who produces worldwide business and modern living, would have offered your listeners a more balanced perspective. A comment was made that Kathy Ireland had not been heard of since Sports Illustrated. Unfortunate for our company, Kathy Ireland Worldwide, and the credibility of your program. I believe I said that. That I haven't heard from since Sports Illustrated. But the sentence here says, it's unfortunate for the credibility of your program, The Embargoed. Mr. Winters, I don't think we have any credibility. We punch stodgy PR in the face here. We have fun along the way. I really appreciated this letter. Mr. Winters wrote this in a very way of defending his brand and his partner, Kathy Ireland. He said that he goes on to say he gave me a link of articles that she's awesome and that she was in Forbes. And apparently she's up to $1 billion business with all her stuff, which is awesome. This is great. Yeah. Not talking Kathy Ireland in any way, but the premise of it all was not to tarnish anybody's reputation, but was to talk about how we as PR professionals work with clients coming out with us, having an expectation that they're going to get some earned media when it's actually really paid media. And hopefully you guys can see through that. But he continues to say, Miss Ireland is always direct about the value of sponsored television, branded content, or as you choose to call it, an infomercial.
Yeah, that's where I got smacked. I called it an infomercial.
You called it an infomercial. Dude, choose your words wisely, Paul, especially with Ireland. He said, and he's respectful. He says, might we discuss these benefits with you? We don't expect that you will retract your commentary or offer Miss Ireland the opportunity to present any form of rebuttal. However, we would appreciate you understanding our point of view and the value of any brand's association with the leader who owns one of the few women-led licensing conglomerates. He left me his name and a number.
Well, Jason's opened a door for us.
Jason's opened the door, right? And it would be a dream of mine to be able to interview Kathy Ireland for free. No sponsored content or anything. So, Ms. Ireland, if you are ready for this, come on the Embargoed. We'd love to have you on the show. Absolutely respectful. We have a lot of fun on the show. We make a lot of fun, a lot of things. We punch stodgy PR in the face. But, our guests, we're always respectful to our guests. It's your platform. Come on out. Bring Mr. Winters along with you as well.
Jason, we appreciate your letter. We'd love to have you both on. Talk about, one of the we come from this from a perspective of PR, not advertising, not advertorial. So earned media is our bread and butter.
Or barely even marketing communications, right? So there's a lot of stuff in there that's not in our wheelhouse either.
And a lot of our viewers and listeners come from PR. So we'd love to hear your side, your take on what kind of brands should go on Kathy Ireland Worldwide. What kind of brands should benefit? What brands do benefit from these sorts of things, and how can PR be integrated into that? We'd love to see that. We'd love to talk about that.
Doors open. Welcome. You know how to reach me. And you know what, Mr. Winters? As soon as this episode is published, I will share the link with you with my reply email. Happy to have you on.
Let's go to our next topic, which is very timely. We are, as we're recording this, it is June 30th, and the July 4th weekend is coming up.
It's freedom in America, right?
Freedom in America for most, or half. So this is a challenge we face in the PR industry, 6-7 times a year because of holidays. It's a short week. So David, I'm going to ask you, on short weeks, I tend to let up on the gas a little bit. I try not to bother most journalists to pitch them because short week, they're dealing with a lot of stuff. What do you do? I
plan. I do a lot of things. I catch up on some readings. It's really not a pitching week. Maybe I'll wait until the end of the week to pitch. I think what I find is a lot of people are out of the office. So a week like this, there's going to be nobody around. It's not a week to actually do news either. Really.
Do you try to take advantage of a slow news week and try to put some news out there? When does that work?
It has to be a holiday related focus, right? So there's people out there pitching 4th of July stories. It might work at that time, but if you're just, if you're some tech company doing some releases, some software, you're not gonna get anything.
And then also, if you are doing 4th of July themed content, you got to be doing that in March or April. Yeah. I've done a lot of work with travel industry. So right now, very timely, you're seeing a lot of stories on the news: gas prices, flight delays, anything related to people hitting the road tomorrow. Those are stories you should have started talking to reporters back a couple months ago. If you're doing it now, it's too late. And then with the short week with reporters, not fully checked in, we don't. PR people and journalists alike are trying to catch up. See the family, get together over the holidays. You gotta plan accordingly. There might be some stuff you might be able to slip in under the wire to reporters who are sort of staffing things, but it's a tough week.
For a PR professional, what a good thing is to do? It's probably slow for a lot of news agencies too, or news reporters. It's a good time from a media relations perspective just to check in. Right? If there's a journalist that you've been working with for over the years, be like, hey, what's going on? What are you working on? How's it going? How can I help you? And not necessarily come with a pitch, right? But that's if you are the PR pro doing that, or if you're doing it in-house as well. That's a good time to reach out to people because it's a little bit slow time. And sometimes if you've been working with them for a while, you chew the fat a little bit, shoot the shit, whatever you want to call it, and kind of develop that relationship a little bit better too.
And that's exactly it. It's a great time to solidify up your contacts, reach out to reporters without an agenda. Just say, look, what are you working on? How's it going? What are you doing over the holiday? They're going to be more receptive to you, for a few weeks down the road when you actually do have something to pitch.
That's what I do. I don't know what else you're going to be doing. Do you have any clients that are demanding like media coverage at that time frame?
Not demanding. We've got a few clients who are like, and it's great. We're starting, I don't know if this is a trend that other PR people are seeing, but we have clients that are getting more sort of in the rhythm of the strategy, or like, so if we put a press release out next week, what does that mean? And I can say, you know what, short week, lousy time to put a press release out, and this is why. And they're more open to sort of understanding our craft.
Yeah.
But they'll still say, well, let's put it out next week. And then that's where the council comes in. It's all about the council.
Yeah. I'm looking forward to a slow week next week, although I'm not having a slow week.
This isn't straight PR related, but I've seen a lot of articles last couple of weeks about job cuts. There was an article in TechCrunch yesterday about cybersecurity companies slashing staffs right now, even though cybersecurity is a real busy industry right now. Are you seeing that?
Dude, I think we're in full-on recession right now, honestly. There's a lot of articles on that, but I've seen it too. So I've had clients that were going gangbusters. They're like, you know what? We're just going to pause hiring for a little bit.
Yeah.
Not necessarily that our business is bad at this time, but you know what? We're going to take the fear has caused conservatism over investment. So people are being conservative because they don't have the visibility of what's ahead. And that has led in a slowdown of hiring and a focus on just what they have. And then I've had others that said, you know what, I've had one client, fortunately just one, said, you know what, we're a startup, don't know what the future holds, so we're just going to pause on PR efforts right now. Let's revisit in a couple of months. Their reason is more that their product ain't going to be ready for a long time.
Mm-hmm.
But the fact that this is happening now, this sort of economic environment is happening now, is a reason why to start pulling purse strings here a little bit tighter.
And the thing that I always advise folks, and I know you do too, is you can scale back, but don't scale back all the way. There are things you can do on the marketing and PR side and the media relations side to keep your name out there. Because if you take your name out of the conversation, you're actually doing your brand and your product and your company damage.
Well, and here's the thing: of all your marketing spends, PR is probably your cheapest, right?
Yeah.
One of the cheapest things that you can do, the least expensive things that you can do. With a good bang for the buck. I'm knocking on wood. I got to knock on wood because I'm fearful as well. So I'm not going to hit my head, do all that kind of thing. I've gone through a couple of these, and it's always been smooth. Meaning, like, there was hiccups along the way, but there was always an investment in PR, and I've never had the issue of having to deal with too much of a hit, because people understand that this is a place that they can invest during these times.
Yeah.
So, the Great Recession, I just rode right through that, but we were riding tech through that, meaning technology was the one thing that was happening during the Great Recession, and wasn't necessarily other jobs. This one feels a little bit different because tech is getting hit. Right, like it's just all of the stock market is getting hit, but for the first time in over a decade, all technology stocks are down. Everything's taking a hit, and that's going to pause some CEOs and other bosses. Like, ugh. I mean, just look at what's happening in crypto. That place is decimated right now.
Well, I mean, it's such an interesting time, and I don't necessarily mean that in a positive way. In the last week or so, you've seen, Joanna Stern at Wall Street Journal did this great piece on the iPhone hitting 15 years old. And what's interesting about that story is, at least on a consumer electronics stage, you're not seeing anything groundbreaking coming through that it's like it's a must-have. I mean, you saw, they replayed that great Steve Jobs teaser of we're rolling out these devices today. That's a phone, that's a camera, that's an iPod. It's all one thing. And when was the last time you saw a rollout that exciting?
I don't know what it's going to be, but it's always something. right?
Yeah.
So, in the late 90s, it was the dot-com boom and bust, and we didn't know what was happening. People putted around for a little bit. People thought it was going to be some sort of wireless technology, but it ended up being social networks, right? Facebook came out in 2005, and then the iPhone came out a few years later, and that kind of caused the boom. And then in the early 2010s, there was this sort of cloud computing boom, which helped AWS ride the next decade, and a bunch of investment over time in the enterprise software space was there, and there was a bunch of, well, I think it's cloud and social networks that people thought it was, and I think people still think it might be, although I'm super skeptical of it. Crypto was going to be it. Maybe this is the downturn, but that place is just looks like a Shark Tank of greedy money launderers, right? So, but right now, I don't know what it will be, either on the consumer side or the enterprise side. But what's going to be driving some sort of innovation that will happen to us? I don't have that crystal ball yet, but I trust that, what's cool about these times is something comes out of it, creating an opportunity for folks like us and for many others in the industry as well.
Well, I mean, I think all you have to do is look at the pandemic, and we're recording this on Zoom, and Zoom just, that is probably one of the one companies that thrived because of the pandemic in the tech space, in the consumer tech space or business tech space. People weren't using Zoom before the pandemic in the way we're using it now.
Yeah, there's all kinds of stuff, right? And people weren't gonna work from home forever.
No. I think this kind of brings us to an interesting point. Sort of, what do you do when you don't have a product or a new aspect of your product to push or promote in the media? And I was watching CBS Mornings the other day, and I came across this video which we're about to show, which I was like, it just sort of, everything clicked for me in terms of, this is the kind of stuff that you should really be doing right now.
You were watching CBS this morning?
I was, hey, I'm a big Gale fan.
I used to love those shows, Paul. I used to love them, but like the Today Show, I mean, George Stephanopoulos he's got a morning show, right?
Yeah, he's good
on ABC, I think he is, or maybe who's ever doing these morning shows, right? It's been great, like growing up and doing that. Somewhere along the way, I did what like a lot of other people did and just got on the phone. But
they stopped being newsy.
Yeah, they're like format shows now, right?
Yeah,
variety shows. So, anyways, but apparently millions of people still watch this stuff.
Millions of people,
including Paul Wilke.
So let me play this clip for you guys.
New data from the dating app Hinge reveals that 3 out of 4 singles around the world say they prefer to stay sober when dating. More than half of them say that they want to be in the, quote, right state of mind while getting to know someone. Logan Ury is director of relationship science at Hinge, and she joins us now because relationships are not an art, but a science.
Yeah, absolutely.
What is going on here? Because I'm with Paul Rudd. Sometimes on that first date, you want to have a drink to loosen up a little bit. Be your best.
I totally get it. We all benefit from that liquid courage, but this is a big trend that's happening in all parts of the country and around the world, where there's a shift away from drinking. We see that Gen Z is drinking less in general. They're drinking about 20% less than millennials were at the same age. And the pandemic helped us go deep. We got to know ourselves better. Now we want to get to know our dates better, and it's easier to do that without alcohol. You don't want to wait until the 6th date to see if you like the person sober.
First of all, it's another dating app I've never heard of as a married man for a very long time. And yet, this is the kind of thing that continues to be able to generate coverage, right? There's human aspects. There's human aspects to some of these mainstream sites, like CBS This Morning, that people always go for. It's dating, it's food, it's celebrities, right? in news, and people just eat this stuff up. Like, I never heard of Hinge before, but kudos to Hinge for getting on CBS This Morning, where they can talk about it for themselves. I mean, I think it's a big hit, and congrats to that PR team, because that was made up news.
I encourage everyone to watch this. It's 4 minutes long. Watch it beginning to end. And as I was watching this, I was really excited because I've long been a proponent of using your own your company's data, using surveys, telling a story that doesn't necessarily push the product. It doesn't go on. It's not. Not once does Logan talk about the dating app. Doesn't talk about like the number of people. She's just positioning them as we're the expert on dating. And if you do that, people are going to be like, oh, I'll try this app. They've got some interesting stuff in there. And they haven't, it goes back to the sort of the dog bites man versus man bites dog story. You think about dates, you think about, meeting for drinks, having a couple drinks, getting to know each other. And what they're doing is they're showcasing a trend that people, Gen Zs in particular, aren't boozing it up on dates.
It's talking to some more mainstream trends. And you try to tell clients like that all the time to get into mainstream conversations and have that. It's a little bit easier with a dating site, although I've done it with security companies too, right? We've done mainstream data research, right? Which would you remember years ago that we did a survey about phone usage? Would you rather wake up with no food or your phone, right? And you have these surveys, and people always wanted their phone before they wanted their food. And this is the kind of data that helps get brands into the news. This was pretty good. I mean, like just even the opening sentence, and you see the video. It's like it's branded. There's a bunch of people that are on the show, to say that it's cool, and they're excited to talk about it. But they prepared for this. Hinge did, and even down to the title of their spokesperson, the director of relationship science. There is no director of relationship science except for one on TV. She's probably the director of marketing or something like that. There, director.
I believe we have a second person we need to invite to a future episode of the Embargoed. That's her.
And then we talk about sound bites a lot in PR, and she turned around this whole. They did their homework. They talked about sobriety and dating, and Gen X wanted to do that, but she also said it takes a bit of liquid courage. Sometimes we want that, but not necessarily to do it, right? So those are shorter ways of saying I'm not going to be a drunk ass along the way. They coached her in a way that does that. So good job to them. I'm looking forward to seeing that whole video.
Survey data is great, but you've got to pair it with something that's relevant to either your brand or your company. They had the survey data. And then they had some general trend stuff. I can't tell you how many times I've had a client over the years is we've got the survey data. We asked 45 of our clients this. It's like, you got to go deeper than 45. You've got to have thousands of people, and it's got to show a true trend. If you're using survey data, you got to go deep with it.
Well, I think you can go deep, but at the same time, PR's got to get their questions in there. A lot of times clients will go in there and like, hey, I got this user survey data. I want to understand it for my product and stuff like that. Can you publicize it? Well, it's going to help shape your product, but it's not necessarily going to shape a narrative. So let us ask some questions that will actually get you attention, right? Instead of like I always reserve 5 questions for myself when I work with clients. Like, yes, you want to learn about customer data, whatever their buying cycle is, whatever feature that they want the most, whether it be this widget or that widget, or how you can improve the product. But give me 5 questions to tell your story, right? And in this case, the question about, for Hinge was, they want people to get on their platform, and they could have asked questions about, well, where did you download the app? What did you like about the app? They probably have all of that data, but these are the PR questions. The questions of, would you go on a date sober, right? Or do you prefer to do that? That's the one that gets you in the news, not necessarily anything else.
Yeah. So before we land this plane, one of the things that caught my eye this week was a particular tweet from Michelle Garrett, who's a PR professional out there, and we're gonna hopefully get her on the Embargoed very soon. But I'm gonna put it up right now. It says, potential PR client who says, we know this isn't a quick fix. Our expectations are that we have to stick with it for a while. Is speaking my love language. Speaking of love, that's great.
Break that down for us.
So there are clients out there, and I am not going to name names, who, say, you know what, we've never done PR before. We want to start working with an agency. We are rolling something out. We're making an announcement next week. We want to get a ton of coverage. Help us do that. And the problem with that is, and as you've said, as I've said, for decades now, public relations is not a fire hose. It's not something you turn on and turn off. It takes time. It takes momentum. You've got to build up a wealth of news, a wealth of information. And, I think one of the biggest things, best things any PR professional can do is manage expectations with their client. And what's so great about Michelle's tweet here is she's got a client that has reasonable expectations, which is refreshing.
I like clients like that.
I love clients like that. It's not that, we want a slow burn, but, the fact of the matter is PR, getting a good strategic PR strategy and campaigns off the ground, it takes time.
It takes time.
It takes more than 2 weeks.
I have a great example of that. In February, I was called in for a client in the enterprise space, and they had some funding news, and they were trying to get in a certain article. And I said, into TechCrunch, actually, and TechCrunch was just not responding. And when they responded, they said no. I mean, it was a legit story. TechCrunch probably should have covered it, and I don't know why they didn't cover it. And I said, hey, we got to expand this to other areas. Ended up giving them, I don't know, 6 to a dozen pieces of coverage for their funding announcement. And I stayed engaged with the client, but they only brought me in at the last minute. Like literally, the press release was written, everything was done. They said, we needed your help on some media relations. I agreed to do it because it was a friend and a client who had it. As far as I could tell, it was a great success. I think, there was, the announcement was there. We achieved the objectives of what we wanted to announce. And I kept bringing them opportunities here and there because it was supposed to be just this little project that we did together. That was it. And then maybe they were going to go off and build some product and then maybe come back later. And I was bringing them some stuff here and there. And then the founder and I were, we were cool, but we were never clear on each other's expectations. I was just trying to keep it going. Well, just the other day, I saw that they did another announcement and put out a press release, but there's no news coverage whatsoever. And what happened there was they did not let the success I had, mature enough to where we could stick with it for a while, right? To actually get them in the news. Like I had already developed a great runway of journalists and media interest and things like that and contacts along the way, but they decided to go a different route and invest in something else. And now I see their announcement come. And it was like, oh, this is a totally different person. I don't know who it was. And, they probably tried really hard. But I had on my side 5 people saying to me, we didn't cover it this time, but come back to me when they have another set of news. I would love to do a profile feature of them. They chose not to go with me. They don't get that because I had those relationships. I had no idea about it. I probably would have if I had an idea about it, I probably would have given it to the journalist that I told me about it, but I'm not working with them anymore. So you have to invest in this over time, right? And there aren't any quick fixes. That you take steps along the way to get this done. So kudos to Michelle. And Michelle, if you're out there, she does this thing called PR lunch hour, freelance chat. It's on Spaces, and I don't really play with Twitter Spaces, but we'd love to have you on the show. I've already reached out to her. She said yes. We just got to find the time. So hopefully she will get back to us soon.
We can't wait. So we got Michelle.
Got to nail Kathy Ireland. No, we got to get her on the show. Yeah,
Kathy Ireland, and we got to get Logan Ury on here. if we can get those 3 on here, that'll be a great few episodes.
Yeah. Well, all right, Paul. I think we've done enough talk today, and I think we've gotten some nuggets for people that are listening. I want to wish you a happy 4th of July, freedom from England.
Likewise, Happy 4th of July. Hope you and your family and to our viewers and listeners that you and your families have a great 4th. Hopefully you don't have to do too much pitching next week, but take advantage of the slow week and email, call a journalist friend of yours.
Yeah, we'll do that. All right. Y'all take care. Thank you.
Take care, everybody.